5 pounds of fresh greens in 30 days on my tiny balcony in the middle of winter. It sounds a little ridiculous, but I actually did it. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how. Hey everyone, welcome back to Balcony Garden Oasis. If you're new here, I help you turn small spaces into thriving little gardens, no matter how tiny your balcony is. Today's video is all about my winter grow experiment. How I managed to grow 5 pounds of fresh organic greens in just 30 days on this little balcony. So, let me set the stage for you. A few friends thought I was slightly delusional. They kept saying things like, nothing grows in winter, and just buy lettuce from the store. But I'd been reading about cold hardy crops and season extension, and I knew there was at least a chance this could work. So I decided to document the whole thing and see what was actually possible in 30 days. Let's start with what I used. For containers, I picked a few that would really maximize that small footprint. Long rectangular planters to fit along the balcony railing and a couple of deeper pots for things that like a bit more root space. The real key was drainage. Winter means less evaporation, and soggy soil is a fast way to kill your plants, so every container I used had plenty of drainage holes. For the soil, I went with a high-quality potting mix, not garden soil. Potting mix is lighter, drains better, and holds just enough moisture without getting waterlogged. To that, I added compost for extra nutrients and a little bit of perlite to keep it airy. My goal was to create a soil environment that stayed loose and breathable, even with repeated watering in cold conditions. Then came the fun part, choosing what to grow. I didn't just throw in random salad seeds and hope for the best. I picked varieties that are known for handling the cold. Things like winter kale, Arctic king lettuce, winter density lettuce, mache, and claytonia. These are the tough guys of the leafy green world. They actually like cooler temperatures and can brush off light frosts without a problem. On planting day, I went out to the balcony bundled up in a jacket, hat, and gloves and got everything sown. I planted pretty densely because my goal wasn't big individual heads of lettuce. It was a steady, cut-and-come-again harvest of baby leaves and small bunches. That's one of the biggest secrets with small spaces. You're often better off harvesting plants young and frequently rather than waiting for full heads. Once everything was planted, I gave the containers a good drink of water and set up a bit of protection. I used a simple, low-tech method, a lightweight frost cloth over the containers, clipped onto the sides so it wouldn't blow away. It's not fancy, but it does a lot. It breaks the wind, holds a bit of warmth, and still lets in light and rain. Now let's walk through how the 30 days actually went. In week 1, honestly, it did not look promising. The soil looked exactly the same, day after day. I'd lift the frost cloth, stare at the dirt, and wonder if I'd just wasted a bunch of seeds. But I stuck with a simple routine. Every morning, usually the warmest part of the morning, I'd go out, check the moisture level, and water only if the top inch of soil felt dry. Overwatering in winter is just as dangerous as underwatering in summer, so I stayed on the cautious side. By the end of week 1, I started seeing the tiniest hints of green. Not much, but enough to keep me motivated. So, week 2 is when things really started to feel real. Little green carpets of seedlings began to appear across all the containers. The kale was up, the lettuce was up, and the mache was just starting to poke through. At this point, sunlight was definitely at a premium, so I rotated the containers just a bit to make sure everything got its fair share of whatever light we had. I also started thinning just a bit, removing the most crowded patches so the remaining seedlings could grow strong instead of struggling on top of each other. By week 3, everything honestly looked like an actual garden. I had rows and patches of small but pretty sturdy plants. The kale leaves were big enough to recognize, the lettuces had a couple of proper leaves, and the mache and claytonia were filling in beautifully. This is when I started my first small harvests. Instead of pulling entire plants, I used the cut-and-come-again method. I'd carefully snip the outer leaves of the lettuces and kale, always leaving the center growing point intact. That way, the plants stayed alive and just kept producing more leaves. It's honestly a perfect method if you want both quick harvests and long-term production, especially in a tight space. By week 4, it got honestly exciting. At this stage, I had enough growth that I could harvest a really generous bowl of greens every couple of days, without slowing the plants down too much. The containers looked lush, and if you just glanced at them, you'd never guess this was a winter balcony and not a spring garden. Before I show you how much food I actually pulled off this balcony, I want to pause for a second and talk to you directly. If you're watching this and you're starting to realize you might be able to do something similar on your own balcony, I'd really love for you to stick around. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. I'm planning more experiments like this, different crops, different seasons, and even tighter spaces, and I think they'll give you a lot of ideas for your own setup. And if you're already growing something on your balcony this winter, let me know in the comments what you're experimenting with. I'd love to hear your ideas. Alright, back to the results. Over the 30 days, I harvested gradually rather than doing one giant cut at the end. Every time I harvested, I weighed what I picked and wrote it down. A little handful of kale here, a bowl of mixed salad greens there. It didn't look like much in the moment, but that's the magic of consistent, small harvests. They add up. When I totaled everything at the end of the month, it came out to just over 5 pounds of greens. That included kale, different types of lettuce, mache, and claytonia. 5 pounds might not sound like a truckload, but think about how light leafy greens are. That's a lot of salads, stir-fries, smoothies, and side dishes from a balcony that most people ignore all winter long. So what actually made this work? Okay, so first up is variety selection. Picking true cold-hardy crops is honestly a game changer. If I had tried this with something like basil or tomatoes, it would have been a total disaster. By choosing plants that are actually bred to handle those low temperatures, I wasn't fighting nature. I was working with it. Second, let's talk about density and harvesting style. Instead of growing big individual heads, I planted a lot more densely and focused on frequent, light harvests. That way, the plants spent more of their energy producing new, tender leaves, rather than putting all their effort into one big central head that I'd just harvest once. Third, consistent but careful watering. In winter, your instinct might be to water less, or even forget about it entirely, but honestly, containers can still dry out, especially when it's windy. I kept things really simple. Check the soil every day, only water when the top layer feels dry, and always make sure to water at the base of the plants to avoid wetting the leaves in those cold, low-light conditions. Fourth, simple protection. That one layer of frost cloth made a bigger difference than I expected. It kept the wind from beating up the plants, reduced the shock of temperature swings, and held just enough warmth on the coldest nights to keep everything moving forward instead of stalling out. And finally, patience. The first week felt like nothing was happening. If I had given up or assumed the seeds had failed, there would have been no harvest at all. Winter growing is often slower and less dramatic than summer, but the payoff is so worth it when you're harvesting fresh greens at a time of year when most people are buying tired lettuce from the store. Now that I've seen what's possible in 30 days, I'm already planning the next round. I want to test different container layouts, maybe try a few root crops, and see just how far I can push year-round balcony growing. If you're still here with me, thank you for watching this experiment all the way through. I hope it gives you proof that your balcony has way more potential than you think, even in the middle of winter. If you found this helpful, the best way you can support the channel is to subscribe, hit the like button, and share this with someone who keeps saying they don't have space to grow food. Thanks for hanging out with me on the balcony, and I'll see you in the next one.